So today in class, we spent some time talking about um, a little bit more information about viruses, some important things I thought everybody needed to know. So that way you would have a better understanding of viral replication whenever we start with that tomorrow. So, this first slide that I have up here, this is what I had showed in class today. And we were kind of comparing the differences between viral infections and bacterial infections. I figured it would be a pretty good idea to have a list available to you of some of the more common infections that people know about. So if you take a look at the list, you'll see that chickenpox and smallpox, herpes, HIV, these are some pretty common viral infections, which means if you do get any one of these illnesses, you can't use the same type of medication to get rid of it as you can for a bacterial infection. So, on the other side of this, looking at things like strep throat, a staph infection, or even E. coli infection, because those are all bacterial infections, you can use what's called an antibiotic to clear up those infections. The reason an antibiotic only works on a bacterial infection is because it's designed to destroy a bacterial cell. So a prokaryotic cell is destroyed in some kind of way by the antibiotic. Because a virus is not a cell, of course, there's going to be a whole different way of having to fight against it. And unfortunately, there are really no medications that we can take that can get rid of a viral infection. They either have to run their course or they can be sort of covered up, as in some of the medications that we use to help control HIV. We also, of course, have vaccinations and immunizations, the shots that you get at different ages that will inject you with the material needed for your body to create antibodies, which fight off any of your infections that you get. So if you were to get chickenpox, let's say, your body develops an antibody for that. It's sort of like a key to the chickenpox lock. And once you have that key, each time you come into contact with that virus, the key will unlock something special that will then get rid of the virus for you. So your immune system knows exactly what to do with that virus when it finds it. We did talk a little bit about the different types of viruses. I kept this very short for you because there's a few differences, but I just wanted to make sure that you didn't get confused with what we're talking about whenever we do cover bacteriophage versus some of our other viruses. So some viruses have DNA within them. If they have DNA, of course, they can just inject their DNA into a healthy cell, and then that DNA gets reproduced. When the cell reproduces, and more viruses can form. Some examples: smallpox is one. If you get gastroenteritis, which is a condition that's caused by the adenovirus, that's also another example. Your RNA viruses, we call those retroviruses. The reason why we call them a retrovirus is because they're a strand of RNA, which means once they're injected into the cell has to perform protein synthesis backwards to create a DNA strand that's going to become part of that cell's genetic code afterwards. So, in the way that we learned how protein synthesis worked, where your messenger RNA came in, read the code, created that RNA strand was then read into amino acids and a protein. It works backwards. The retrovirus injects the RNA, and protein synthesis actually goes backwards to get to the original DNA strand. HIV, the flu, they all work this way. RNA viruses also easily mutate, and it makes it a lot harder to come up with different medications to sort of put these viruses in check because they're constantly mutating. And then, of course, you're going to see we have a bacteriophage. These are special viruses that only attack our bacterial cells. And they actually can infect E. coli bacteria, staph bacteria, strep bacteria, all bacterial infections that we can get But these bacteriophages, when they infect those bacterial cells, can cause serious infections in humans if we were to come into contact with that infected bacteria. Um, One of the things that I have on here is a little video clip that you can watch that shows you in detail how a virus does attack a cell. The thing you need to remember is that viruses are really good at faking who they are. They can create and mutate receptors all along their outside, these little glycoproteins, and they can make them mimic um, the different proteins that are on the outside of our cell that are designed to capture good things that we want to bring inside the cell. Well, when a virus can do that and pretend to be something that's good, it's allowed access into the cell membrane and then allowed access inside the cell where it can inject its DNA or RNA and then infect the cell. Sometimes those receptors just allow the virus to kind of latch on and then inject its material. And then other times the cell will perform something called endocytosis, which is when it literally swallows whatever that material is that's on the outside, whether it's a virus or something good. So I'll give you a chance to kind of watch this little video clip. It's just a little over a minute, so you can see how a virus will attach to a cell.